All right, so we talked last time about how to set real goals, about how to take there's the big awesome vision and dreams and purpose that you have, and to break those things down into actionable steps. We talked about how everything that you do, if you really want to accomplish something, it needs to be specific, it needs to be measurable, it needs to be attainable, it needs to be relevant, and it needs to be time bound. If the thing you are trying to accomplish, if you cannot apply that criteria to it, you are probably closer to having like a hope or a dream or a wish or a prayer, and you're probably not going to accomplish it because those things are debilitating. Now, you can have all those things in place. You can have real goals set up that you are working toward. But if you don't understand the things that kill your goals, if you don't understand what kind of goal killers are still going to sneak into your life, you will not accomplish them. So we're going to talk about that today. So I want to remind you again, don't get caught up on the idea of goals. Goals have this sort of like corporate or I don't know, like self-helpy type like connotation to them. And there's books on goals and there's all these different, ways that you can achieve your goals. We are talking about that, but I want you to understand that this is about something bigger than just like goals about like, oh, I want to lose 30 pounds or I want to make $10,000 next month. This is really about taking that larger vision, those big things that you were put here to do, the things that give you a sense of purpose, the things that drive you and give you energy. How do we take those things and make them into reality? How do we bring them into our lives in a real way? Last week, we talked about how to break things down in a way that you can do that. This week, we're going to talk about the things that will stop you. I call them goal killers. I call them roadblocks. I see them all the time. I do trainings on this for different companies. I work with individuals about this. I see high functioning people fall victim to these things. And so today we're just going to lay those out, get them out in front of us, and we're going to end with looking at what you can do about it. So the very first thing, I want to go ahead and get this one out of the way since we talked about it already. The number one thing that I see sink people, the number one goal killer is not actually having goals. So many people think they have goals when they have hopes and dreams and aspirations. When you don't have your vision or your idea into something that can be planned, when you don't have that broken down into something that you can actually work with, you're not going to achieve it. And what's going to happen is it's going to feel overwhelming or unachievable, and that's going to chip away at you. You're going to feel overwhelmed, which leads to procrastination. And for some reason, we have turned procrastination into like a moral thing. We've turned it into like a character defect instead of a natural response to being given a task that you can't accomplish, even if you've given it to yourself. And so when you do that, you just it's self-sabotage. You're almost like signing up for failure. So make sure you have good goals. Make sure you have real goals. Make sure you have that they're attainable and time bound and all those things we talked about last week. And if you'll do that, that's the number one goal killer to get out of your way. Now, the second thing I see sink a lot of people. I don't care how high functioning you are. I don't care how just badass and, I'll do everything you are. If you confuse the idea of try and do, if you conflate those two ideas, you are going to have trouble all the time. I see this happen frequently when we don't really want to do something. So let's say I'm working with someone and we're talking about goals, and one of their goals is to go to 3 networking events this week. If they say, I'm going to try to do that, that's a red flag, because that is not something that is a try. It's just a do. It's something that you just choose to go do. I could say, if I have a goal, I'm going to make $10,000 this week. That's a try, because it may not happen. There are so many factors out beyond my control that it is something I can aim for. Now I can break that down into steps and I can take those steps. That's where those just become do things that I don't have to try. But when we leave it as when we conflate, when we confuse a try and a do, we get ourselves in trouble. Going back to the networking thing. Yes, technically everything is a try. Maybe your car breaks down. Maybe the event is canceled. Set stuff like that aside. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is somebody saying, I will try to do that, when what they really mean is, I don't really want to, and I'm kind of trying to leave myself an excuse. I'm trying to leave myself an open door to escape and not do this. So I've learned just to call people on it. This is not a try. This is a do. If you want to go to 3 or 4 networking events this week, you can do that. If you want to start walking 10,000 steps a day, you can do that. If you want to start looking for other jobs, you can do that. These are actions you can take. They don't require preparation, and the chance of failing at them, the chance of failing at them in a way that's not your fault is almost non-existent. Most of the time, if you fail on those kinds of very actionable goals, it's because it's a choice you've made, like you've chosen to fail. And if we don't admit that, we can't fix things that we don't admit are broken. So when you catch yourself saying you're going to try something that's just a do, recognize that you're probably taking the first step towards not accomplishing what you want to accomplish. So we're actually going to do an entire episode on this because it's just one of my obsessions, one of the things I love talking about and doing most. But one of the things that I see kill people's goals, that's to stop them from doing the things they want to do, is bad time management. We live in a world full of distractions. We've talked about this. I understand that. But being in a world full of distractions just means you have to manage your time more efficiently. You have to manage it better. Most people cannot tell you where their time goes. It's like the broke friend you have, the friend who's always broke. They can't tell you where their money goes because they're not tracking it. They're not paying attention to it. People who are time broke, people who don't manage their time well, they can't tell you where their time goes. And when I have them do things like a time audit, one of my favorite things in the world, when I have them do a time audit, they are always shocked to find out where their time goes. They'll make guesses. Oh, I bet I watch an hour of TV a day. No, it's 4 hours. At one point, I guessed, I was like, I bet I spend at least 20 to 25 minutes a day returning emails. I spend 45 minutes a day returning texts. A lot of days I spend an hour to an hour and a half replying to emails. When I realized that it was that kind of impact on my time budget, when I realized it was taking up that big of a chunk of my time, I started accounting for it and everything changed. Anything we don't account for we're going to hemorrhage it. It's not going to be well managed. So bad time management, and like I said, we're going to do a whole episode on this because it's that important, but it is one of the main things I see that sink people in their goals. The next thing I see, and this one's not popular, I don't know what it is. This has become an unpopular concept these days, but the idea of accountability is so important. When I see like, especially like high functioning, high performing people not accomplishing their goals, it's often because they don't have any kind of accountability. I get it. Maybe it's one of those words that sounds old fashioned. Maybe it's one of those things that we like to think that we've evolved past because we're just, we're so high minded and amazing now. But just as a species, we need accountability. We need to know that somebody else is going to be asking us, hey, did you follow through on that thing? It is good for us. Our ego doesn't like it. Our ego pushes back against it. But that doesn't mean that it's not good for us. In fact, our ego probably pushes back against it because it's the thing that's really going to get us to put ourselves out there and start doing the things we want to do. Not having accountability is kind of a form of self-sabotage. Now, I get but maybe you work like I work. Maybe you work for yourself and you don't have other people around you. You can still find accountability. I create accountability for myself in every way that I can. When I tell a client I'm going to send them something, I make a note of it. And if I don't, I hope they call me on it. When I wanted to start blogging, I wanted to start blogging years ago. And I wrote all these blogs and polished them and then threw them away because I just didn't like one thing. I did the same thing with this podcast. It took me forever to launch it. The way I got around it was I committed publicly. I went to the people who follow me online, went to my newsletter and say, hey, I'm going to blog every day for a year. And I put that out there. And so they would hold me accountable. And because of that, I blogged every single day for a year. When I publicly said that I'm going to release a podcast episode next week, I did it. Here recently with 75 Hard. I mean, that 75 Hard is hard for me. I don't like working out. It's the thing that I always drop off. So 2 45-minute workouts a day is hard for me. And it's hard to fit into my schedule. I committed publicly and invited people to do it with me. And because of that, I'm now accountable to them and I'm much more likely to follow through. That is huge. You will not accomplish your goals if you don't have some kind of accountability. The next thing is tied to that. It's another thing that's not popular, that people don't like it, but I will say, I will shout this from any rooftop, and I'll say this to anybody that listen. You have to value constraint over restraint. It is better to have some kind of external thing stopping you or keeping you in your lane than to trust your restraint all the time, because your restraint is going to fail you. If you're tired, if you're hungry, if you're lonely, if you're all those things that we talk about, if you're any of those things, that restraint is going to fail you because you are not your best self. It's like you're trusting yourself to monitor yourself, but you're not always your best self. Constraint, having external things that will kind of like pull you back into line, is huge. I've mentioned it before. I promise. I don't sell this. I have no affiliation with the company. This little thing called the Brick. I got it. I set up an app. I told it what I didn't want turned on. And when I touch my phone to that, it shuts everything else off. It shuts all the other apps off. And I did that because what I noticed was that I will be working, I'll be buzzing along, I'll be doing really well. And then I get this like sense of hopelessness or despair. From what I've heard, it's an ADHD thing. And I will grab my phone and I'll start looking at Instagram. And then I'll start, going down rabbit holes of the news and other things like that. This thing right here, it forces me to stop and think like, do I really want to do that? What's awesome about this, why this is better than like screen time settings, is because I can stick it on the fridge upstairs or put it out in my workshop. And then I have to like go up the stairs and outside. And it requires an energy expenditure, which I'm probably not going to give over something as stupid as Instagram because I really kind of hate it. I'm really just seeking dopamine and maybe some stress chemicals because I want to be distracted from the work I'm doing. That constraint has made it so much easier for me to get my work done, and that is huge. I think another thing that ends up that sinks people's ability to accomplish their goals is overwhelm. We try to do so many things now. I did a whole episode on focus. When you don't keep your focus on things, you end up just doing so many different things at once, and that's very overwhelming. Like I said a second ago, that leads to procrastination, which leads to self-judgment. It's just this like negative tumble down effect. So you have to watch out for being overwhelmed. Having accountability and having constraint will help you with the overwhelm, because before you add one more thing on, you're going to say to yourself, oh, I got to explain this to my accountability partner. Or, before I go down a rabbit hole on Reddit of learning about something new, I have to go unlock my phone from this brick. So if your natural tendency is to want to chase shiny objects, that's going to lead to overwhelm, and that's going to sink your goals. Constraint and accountability will help you get around that. So another thing that really sinks people is using perfectionism as a way of self-sabotaging. I did this forever. Like you just heard me talk about it when I talked about the blog, and that's why I committed publicly and all that. That one's really insidious, because you make yourself think like, well, no, I'm not releasing this because I'm scared, or I'm not avoiding this because I'm lazy or tired. I'm avoiding it because I need it to be perfect. Like I have just high standards that I can't put this out there. That is probably the number one way that like high functioning, high performing people sabotage themselves, is through perfectionism. So I think that's where that accountability helps you get around that, because that person's going to say like, hey, did you put it out there? I'm like, well, no, I couldn't get it the way I wanted to do it anyway. That constraint will keep you from finding ways to distract yourself, because that perfectionism as a way of self-sabotaging is really, that's pretty difficult. That's a pretty tough one to get around. So these last three are three of my favorite things to talk about. One of them is the least popular thing I've ever talked about as far as the podcast goes, but I stand by it. I think it's really important. The first one is the idea of priorities. Most people, and I'm comfortable saying most, I'd be comfortable saying a majority of people, do not understand that their stated priorities and their actual priorities are very different. They will tell me that their priorities are God, family, work, things like that. But when I ask them, what would an invisible person, there's an invisible person, they follow you around for 30 days. What would they come back and tell me your priorities are? And that radically recenters it, because now instead of like these idealistic priorities we're talking about, we're suddenly talking about how do you spend your time? Because how you spend your time is what will tell you what your priorities are. If you spend all of your time playing video games, that's your priority. If you spend all of your time drinking, that's your priority. If you spend all your time working, that's your priority. This is the way it works. You cannot say that something is a priority if you don't give it time. This is where something like a time audit and stuff like that is so helpful, because it's going to force you to look at the things that you're doing. Bad priorities, like misaligned priorities, are one of the number one goal killers that you can find, because you think you're doing one thing when you're actually doing another. That will sink you every single time. All right, so the least, it's probably one of the most watched, but gauging from response, one of the least popular, one of the least well accepted podcasts I ever did was on how passion and motivation are overrated. I stand by that. I might do a whole nother episode on it just because it is that important. We live in this culture, this hustle and grind influencer culture, and all you got to do is pull yourself up by your bootstraps and kill your inner bitch and all that stuff, and you're going to be fine. And that is bullshit. Passion and motivation are fleeting. And over-reliance on passion and motivation is going to cost you your ability to complete the things you want to complete every single time. It's just like with restraint. We cannot trust our best self to show up all the time. If the only thing that's allowing you to succeed is the fact that you have a tailwind pushing you forward and you're just breezing through life, what are you going to do when the tailwind's gone? People who need that tailwind, people who need the passion and the motivation to get out there and do the things they need to do, they are sunk just in normal conditions. If they set like the top conditions, the best life gets, if they set that as their baseline, they are sunk in normal conditions, and they just implode and die when they have a headwind or when life gets hard. You cannot rely on passion and motivation. Discipline and perseverance is what we want to cultivate. If you will cultivate discipline, if you will cultivate perseverance, and you will make it where that is what you do, where every single day you get up, you do what you need to do, and you don't let conditions and other things dictate that to you, you don't let those things knock you off your course, then cool, you're going to accomplish what you need to accomplish. And then on the days when you do have that tailwind of passion and motivation and you just feel great and there's rainbows and unicorns all over the place, you're going to kill it. You're going to kill it. In those times, you're going to be, flying 100 miles an hour and nobody can stop you. But the most important thing is that when that tailwind goes away, when a headwind comes in, because you've cultivated discipline and perseverance instead of passion and motivation, you're going to be okay. And that's the most important thing. Like if you look at one common thread among these things is that you can't trust things that are fleeting. The ability to make yourself do, to restrain yourself from the things you want to do all the time, that's really hard to do. The idea that you have to be passionate and motivated all the time is going to sink you. The idea that you are always going to be self-accountable and you're going to accomplish all the things that you want to accomplish because you're just that responsible and badass, those are dangerous things to hang your hat on. Those are dangerous things to place too much weight on. It's like, I don't know, it's like investing your retirement in stocks that are gonna, 1 in a million stocks. 1 in a million is 1 in a million because it's rare. Discipline and perseverance will allow you to overcome the hard times when you miss the 1 in a million. Discipline and perseverance will allow you to do what you need to do every day, even when you don't feel like it, and that is key. And man, this last one is, we're doing a whole episode on this as well because I think it's so important because I just love it so much. One of the biggest goal killers out there is people saying yes to too many things. For every one thing you say yes to, you are saying no to 10,000 other things. We do this for so many reasons. We're conditioned to do it. We want people's approval. We want a distraction. It gets us out of doing what we need to do, and we can have an excuse like, well, it wasn't my fault. Somebody called. Like that I get it. I get why we say yes to too many things. I did it for so long. And I don't remember what year it was, but I used to do a thing where I'd have like a theme each year. And one year my theme was saying no, because I read a quote. I want to say it was from Ryan Holiday, but I recently saw that somebody else said it. But I think Ryan Holiday talks about it, that if something's not a hell yes, then it's a no. And I'd noticed that as I looked at my schedule, I had all these things on there that I just didn't want to do. I'd see them and I'd be like, oh shit, why didn't I say yes to this? And when I realized that, and then I read that quote, I thought, okay, I'm going to start saying no. So for a year, I said no to so many things. I had so many people fall off and fall out of my life. And at first that was hard because I have this thing inside of me that everybody has to love me and I have to be everything to everybody. And I have to perform for everybody and give them what they need or I'm going to be abandoned. That was hard for me. But once I got used to it, it got to be so nice. It got to be so nice. Like these days, there's nothing on my calendar that I don't want to be on there. If I have something to do, it is because I have said that it's a hell yes in my life. Now, when we do the episode, we're going to break this down. There's some nuance to it. I never I don't like leaving my house. I don't like going out to eat. My wife likes going out to eat. Making my wife happy is a hell yes, so I do it. So there's some nuance to this that we'll dive into down the road somewhere. But understand that for every one thing you say yes to, you're saying no to 1,000 others. And there's a really good chance that that's one of the main things that's keeping you from accomplishing the big things that you want to accomplish in life. So when we talk about taking action on these things, this is the important part because one of the other goal killers is reading about stuff and planning and never actually doing. That's the biggest goal killer, actually. The people that you see that are out there doing the big things, they're rarely the best or the smartest or the most well-suited. They are most often the people who actually just took the action, who took the step and started doing it. It's amazing how important that step is. So when we talk about these things, how do you take action on them? I think the very first thing I'd encourage you to do is go through that list of goal killers. I'll put it in the show notes. Go through that list and see which ones really affect you and then ask yourself, what is the simplest way? What's the most immediate way that I can deal with this? If you have vague, weird goals that are just floating around out there, cool. Turn them into SMART goals. If you are trying to value restraint over constraint, do something. Ask yourself, like, what could I bring in from outside that would actually force me to do this until it becomes a habit? If you have no accountability, reach out to somebody you trust and say, hey, I need to accomplish this thing. There's a thing called body doubling where people just sit and do the work together. That's a huge form of accountability. That helps so much. If you continually sabotage yourself, talk to a therapist, talk to a coach. There's so many things that you can do that will allow you to take these steps, and they're immediate. You don't have to invest all this time and money. Most of these things are things you can set up on your own. If you can't afford a therapist or a coach, there's a million books out there. There's a million blogs, YouTube videos, podcasts that can help you start taking these steps. I will guarantee you, no matter what it is that's keeping you from accomplishing your goals, there is some step you can take to start doing that. There's some step. It might be small and it might not be ideal and you might not want to do it. You cannot get caught up on bullshit like that. Do not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Take the step that you can take. But I want to encourage you, go through the list of goal killers, see which ones affect you, and then come up with a concrete action you can take to address that. If you can't figure it out, email me, james@jamesscotthenson. Shoot me an email and I'll help you figure that out. That is my favorite stuff to do. So if you see one and it just seems too opaque, too hard to figure out, shoot me an email and we'll sort it out together. All right, I appreciate you so much for taking the time to listen to these things I say and to watch these videos. I'm grateful for it. It's the reason I keep doing it. I love hearing back from people. I'm grateful that this has been useful to people. I'm grateful to those of you who share it with others and leave me reviews and things like that. That's super helpful. We've talked about how to create real goals. We've talked about the things that kill them. The next thing we're going to look at is how to actually manage your time. We're going to look at concrete, real ways to take your time and to make it work for you instead of you always scrambling and trying to figure out why you don't have enough of it. It's another one of my favorite things to talk about. It's, I've been told I can be militant about my time, and I probably can. And I'm not sorry for that because it's changed my life so much. So I'm going to look forward to talking to you about that next time. Until then, take care. Look at what's stopping you from doing the things you want to do and see what you can do about it.